Tallboys and Trackmasters is brought to you by Expert Exhaust. Expect more for your money. MTB Shock Dock, your choice for suspension needs. High Gear Success. From helping racers get sponsored to motorsports event operation and promotion, shift your passion into high gear. Miracle Works Detailing. No cars too dirty. And by Cycle Mart, your motorcycle parts store.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to episode 65 of Tallboys and Trackmasters. Oh yeah, good stuff. Well, Mr. Trevor, how was your 2-week hiatus there?
Well, I'm pleased to announce I've got a lot less fiberglass than I had on the last episode. Cast is off, and do some rehabilitation. I'll be back and worse than ever before you know it.
You ready to try that new pins and plates out, see how strong they are,
huh? I'd like to not.
Well, you know how it is riding with us every once in a while. So.
Yeah, we'll. I'm going to take a little bit of a break from riding for a while.
Well,
I'll be back.
You've got an important event coming up here in less than 10 days, sir.
Yeah, I sure do.
That's exciting.
Yep, Shiloh and I are getting married, and it's pretty exciting.
I'm pumped for you guys. That'll be a good thing, and hopefully everybody out there will wish you guys success in your future endeavors. And show might get a little sporadic here for the next couple of weeks after that, but we're looking forward to seeing you guys tie the knot. So
yeah, I'm just thrilled to be out of cast for the wedding.
That'll be good. Yeah, you don't want the pictures where you're sitting there like that. That wouldn't be.
I tell you, my surgeon knew that we were getting married, and about a week and a half. So he came in and he asked me, he said, "What color's your suit?" Just kind of looked at him. I was like, "Gray," thinking like, "What's it matter?" And he turns to his physician's assistant and says, "All right, we'll put him in a gray cast." And he had me thinking he was going to recast me yesterday, and I was. Shiloh said my face just completely dropped. Like,
see if it blends in with the sleeve on your suit there.
Well, I had to go back and get my suit refit yesterday once I got my cast off because the arm was too fat to go, or the cast is too fat to go through the armhole. So
at least they get you set up.
Yeah, buddy.
Well, we're excited to have you here tonight, and excited for everybody else to be here with us tonight. We got a pretty awesome guest lined up for the show tonight. He is a local moto legend in many people's eyes. Mr. Gabby's been around, done it all, seen it all, and he's been really busy this summer. So we're really excited to talk about his project he's been working on.
Yeah.
So without further ado, let's introduce everybody to Jeff Wright, aka Gabby. What's up, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing all right. How are you?
Oh man, we're excited. We're sitting here, get to drink a little beer and chat with some moto legend here. How you been, bub?
I don't know if I'd go with Moto Legend, but
yeah, you are.
You're like somebody's mind, maybe my own mind. I don't know.
You're like the
you're like the mind that matters.
You're like the Dos Equis guy of dual sport and adventure riding, bud.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, buddy,
humble too.
We're excited to have you here tonight, and we'll just kind of go through our normal routine of what we do during interviews. So let's start this thing out with where were you born and raised at, bub?
I was born in Parkersburg, West Virginia, and grew up in Parkersburg, and graduated from Parkersburg High School.
It's not too far away from us. How'd you get your start into motorcycles?
My stepdad bought me a little mini bike, to 2.5 horsepower Tecumseh powered MTD mini bike in 1973, and that was my first motorized two-wheeled vehicle. And it was pretty basic, but it was actually in very good shape. Paid $50 for it, and and kept that thing for several years.
Cool.
And then in 1978, my aunt gave me this bike that's, let me see if I can get my head out of the way, hanging up here in the rafters. I've still got it.
I see it back there, yeah.
It's a 73 LT3 100 Yamaha. So when I'm gone, my daughter will have to take that thing down out of there and get rid of it, I guess.
So, growing up there in Parkersburg, what were some of the places that you like to go and ride and explore the area?
Well, up until I had my driver's license, it was pretty limited to some local trails in my neighborhood there. You know, some property. There was some people good enough to just not really say anything about us riding it between my house and, if anybody's a golfer, between what's called the Golf Club of West Virginia now, and there was a strip of land out there. We had trails that went back in, and that's where I spent my time as a kid, playing back in there and riding up until I actually got my license. And then it was off on these little dirt roads that I still ride, you know. That bike's got 10,000 miles on these little back roads.
That's really impressive.
So what was it mostly just trail riding? Did you do any racing in your younger days or anything like that?
Well, so when I finally got a decent job, I did started out racing in '85, and I was kind of misguided a little bit. The only people I knew that raced rode motocross, and they were you probably might have heard of Chad Duvall, but anyhow, Chad was he was actually 3 years younger than me, so I kind of ran around those guys, which they could actually ride, and I couldn't very well, and so it took a while. So I got away from the motocross. Only lasted about a year or so. I never liked everything about it. Didn't like the being in front of people, the whole sprint type race or nothing. I was never a motocrosser, but that was the only people I knew that actually had dirt bikes and raced. So I got running with in '86. I got to running with Gary Roach and Paul Lemon and some of the other local guys that were the ops. They were to off-road racing what Chad Duvall at that time was the motocross. They were still pros. I mean, Gary and Paul both won GNCCs, you know, during the time I knew them. So I learned pretty early where I stood in the pecking order. I never had the talent those guys did, you know. But I did that for, I don't know, I guess I never really officially quit racing. I'd still go race one I tend to call it ride one anymore, you know, but if I wanted to, you know. So.
Yeah. So obviously, you know, late '80s, West Virginia, doing some hair scramble style stuff. Surely you've had to make your way in your pilgrimage over to do the Blackwater 100, right?
I raced it in '86 because that was my goal. The whole reason I wanted to get a dirt bike and stuff was to race the Blackwater. So I went over and raced it one time in '86. Ended up in a 250B class. You didn't have all these morning races and afternoon races and, you know, a whole bunch of classes. Everybody got up there and lined up. So you had either A rider or a B rider. So 250B class, I believe, had 92 riders on it, and I got 21st. And I've got a trophy hanging on the wall up here with them. That's one of the few trophies I've actually kept, but that's one of them. It's actually comical until you realize there was 92 people in the class.
I always did like that. You go to the GNCCs. I remember growing up, and like we go to Unadilla up in New York, and that was like one of the biggest rounds of the entire series. And you'd be up there, and I'm like, man, I didn't really do really good. I got like 17th place, and then you look at the results at the end of the class, like, yeah, but there was 89 people in your class. So yeah, you get a plaque that says 15th place on it. Like I've never seen anything like that before.
Yeah, one for every 3 riders, what they generally do, you know. So
yeah. So did that kind of spur you on? Did you try to do like the GNCC series as a whole? later
I
years?
I did there for when Paul and those guys were racing, which was in the early or late '80s, and then I kind of got away from the. So I started racing enduros in Southern Iowa, which fit me a lot better because they were single track trails and they were. I don't know. You actually would cover, 100 miles in a day versus, when I first started racing the GNCCs, they were called the 100-miler series, and they would actually try to do a 100-mile race. Whether if you didn't get lapped, you would get in 100 miles. So versus the enduros were 80 to 100 to 150 miles, regardless, as long if you finished. So I got into doing that and the local hare scrambles. So whatever, just try to race about every weekend somewhere, every other weekend, whatever's going on.
So you said Iowa. What's the terrain like out there?
Iowa. No, I didn't mean to say Iowa.
Ohio.
I didn't say Iowa. Sorry, I said Ohio.
Ohio. Never mind. I know what the terrain.
Ohio. I just
said Iowa.
Okay.
Yeah,
understood.
Let's talk about the differences between an enduro and a hare scramble event, because I know a lot of people get that confused sometimes. Now it's definitely a lot more single track, and there's like a timekeeping aspect to it, and talk about that a little bit.
Well, the misnomer or the misunderstanding about that, you say, like, is that most of the local enduros are on a 24 mile per hour average, and you think, well, that's not very fast. Well, until you realize that there's no the terrain we run, there's no human that can run 24 miles an hour in it. So everybody thinks, well, I don't want to be just sitting. They think they're just idling out there. Well, the idea behind the speed average is to keep the speeds down on the connecting roads. And so you don't have to say, yeah, you might be going out the road if you're on time at 24 mile an hour, but once you get in the woods, you're going faster than it's humanly possible. So that's how they take points away from the top riders in the world in those situations. So they're actually a lot of fun, because if you can get a break on the roads, and they have resets to put you back on time. And but the train is, you're running through a trail that's ridden once a year, and so it's not beat up quad trail. And so if you like that kind of stuff, the ACES Enduro Series, which is the local Ohio series, it stands for Appalachian Championship Enduro Series. They actually run the Athens Milk Run, goes through my property and all around my house.
Oh, wow.
That's how I ended up over here, actually, because the old Athens Club was running enduros that ran through this area, and I thought, well, that's be a good place to live. So I ended up in Ohio.
Yeah, that's definitely something I've really wanted to try, because, in my opinion, that's probably the closest I'll ever get to racing a dual sport. Like, there's a little bit of element of everything involved with, keeping navigation and keeping a good set pace, and still being able to crank it up on the single track stuff as well. It definitely piques my interest.
Yeah, it's and now they've went to what they call restart enduros, where you don't even have to think about it. You just ride down the road, and then they tell you to start when you pull into a wood section and go as hard as you can. Which I have mixed feelings about that, because before it was a mind game a little bit, and so sometimes the smartest rider would win, maybe not exactly the fastest rider, but But so the ACES series has a mixture of we have some that are timekeepers and some that aren't. But the National Enduro Series, NEPG, they're all restart enduros.
Okay.
And they run this year. They actually had two of them that were also ACES races. They were in Ohio, so we had two national enduros.
Yeah. Jeff, let's switch gears a little bit here. So obviously, racing, riding, that type of deal, and you're big into the dual sport and adventure scene as well. Talk about how that started out. What was your first dual sport, and what are some of your most memorable rides you've done?
Well, my first dual sport is the one that's behind me here, and I had a XL 350 that my dad had bought secondhand, and I wore that thing completely out. And 1984, I rode it from my house to Blackwater with just camping gear strapped on the back, and went across the bridge and camped there, which when they quit having race, you couldn't get that campsite weeks ahead of time. But I just rode across the bridge and set a tent up. It was a different world then. But I've always been one to get out the county maps and see where they went. And the West Virginia county maps used to be really good, and they would show you little dotted lines where a road used to be. Well, I'd go trucking down through there, and sometimes I'd end up in somebody's yard or whatever. And usually, if I was nice, I'd knock on doors and say, "Hey, I'm sorry if I come out in your yard. You mind if I just push my bike through here and get out of there?" Most people were always, because I was on that little bike and nobody really cared. But as I got older, then the rides got longer, and now in the past several years, I've gotten more into camping off the bike. But I thought I'd try to share some of these roads that I grew up riding with people.
Yeah, let's touch on that because I hadn't seen hide or tail of you here most of the summer, and I'm like, what happened to this guy? He just kind of disappeared. But you've been really hard at work putting together a route that goes across the entire state of West Virginia. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, Gabby's got a route he's put together in a Facebook group. It's the CWVAT, Cross West Virginia Adventure Trail. Talk about what went into putting that together, when some of the challenges and successes you had with that.
Well, this is stuff, at least the eastern part, probably over into Calhoun County, was stuff that I've ridden for either my whole life or in the past 30 years, stuff that I ride regularly. And so it wasn't a lot of work or research, because it's a lifelong project. But it's always been in the back of my head as to how to connect, as much as I can with dirt roads, as much dirt as possible. And so if you look at it, it looks like some kind of a pond algae or something, because it loops them back and forth and all that stuff, just to try to pick up dirt roads instead of just buzzing down the main 2-lane highways, which they're there if you need to shortcut it. But and the eastern stuff, I rode that a lot too. And then so it ties in with Brian's IMAT. Some of the stuff that Chris is known for, the Blackwater. There's only so many roads, and everybody uses them. I rode those for years too. So just the middle part, probably around from Grantsville to Flatwoods, basically, was something I had to, that I'd ridden, but I just to put it together in my head, I had to go back out and actually check it out to make sure it's there get as much dirt as possible. And you hit a road that's, you look at it on Google Earth and it's like, oh, that's a dirt road when you get out there. It used to be a dirt road, but now it's a paved road.
Especially down in that area, down Gilmer and Braxton County. I can say that for sure. That was like 2 or 3 years back. Went down, my family's from Frametown and Gilmer County, Braxton and Gilmer.
Oh, I know exactly what Frametown is.
Yeah. So
just went through there.
My dad took us down, and he knows a whole bunch. Grew up riding and racing and everything down in Gilmer County. So he takes us down there for this. It was like a 200-mile ride that day, and we were hitting all these old cool county back roads that he knew. And man, I tell you what, the old adage that progress came and took its toll. I'd say 75% of those roads that I remember being a kid on, riding around in big old lifted Jeeps and whatnot with him, were all paved now. So there's a lot of stuff down there is kind of progressed in a bad way.
Yeah, they call it roads to prosperity. I'm waiting to see the prosperity, because as of now, all it's amounting to is roads I used to really enjoy riding that were dirt and gravel being paved over. And
yeah, it's unfortunate part of it.
Yeah, and the problem with those little roads is that there might be less maintenance to the state, but now you've got one lane paved and you're in a 4-wheeled vehicle and you meet somebody coming at you. Well, there's no ditch. It doesn't roll off into the ditch. It's a square drop. There's no place to get around anyway.
Yeah, there's like when we went and rode this past weekend, went down to Blue Hole, and then we're coming back up on towards Brewston Mills, and they've paved that stretch right after, like if you're coming up the Brewston Mills side out of Blue Hole.
You serious?
Yeah. Well, it's paved like all the way through those old farmlands and stuff, like all the way to Brewston Mills. But yeah, the pavement is like, it looks like it's 1.5 feet tall, and now there's like a 4-foot drop off the pavement into the ditch now. It's just incredible how they do things around here anymore.
Yeah, so I tried to stay north of the TAT that Sam has across there. So because that's already kind of documented, and he sells those tracks, and that's part of a whole loop that he's put in through the United States. And so I tried to not duplicate stuff, although I ended up with a 0.3 of a mile otter, or the bridge across the 79 right there below Flatwoods. Actually, right, I come out of one end of the bridge and he goes across it. So I think I looked, it was 0.3 of a mile that we shared the same route. But other than that, they diverge on the end of his goes towards Sutton and mine goes up towards Flatwoods.
Yeah, I'm familiar with all of that area as well. So from my general understanding, I've downloaded the files, and thank you again for being one of the guys that's sharing that stuff for free, which I think is absolutely fantastic. You've got it broken down into 4 different sections, and it's basically going from Marietta towards Huttonsville, correct?
It actually ends at the Virginia line. So
Yeah.
you go through Durban, and then you Bartow, you go up over the which is actually part of the original Stanton Parkersburg Turnpike, and ends at the just past the Virginia line on Route 250.
Cool. And
then
you have all kinds of opportunities for moto camping as well, from what I've seen. It goes through a lot of cool state forests.
That's what I tried to run it through, and it kind of worked out that way anyhow around the state parks, which are not the cheapest option but they're usually pretty nice. And so if you're splitting a campsite with a few folks, it's not so bad. And you have showers and whatnot, and so most people's ridden the eastern stuff in the national forest, but so the stuff basically between 79 and the High River, a lot of people haven't been on. So that's kind of what if you're running, you're familiar with Gilmer County and Calhoun County and Wirt County. The farther east you go, the more roads there are. So 79 is kind of the cutoff as far as the quantity of roads. The mountains get steeper and the roads get fewer. So
Yeah. Now, when I was studying that, especially on the western part of your route, I started noticing there was a lot of challenge sections that you were offering as well, which is something I'm definitely interested in. And looked like there was a lot of familiar death by dual sport roads there in that.
There's a few of them. Yep, exactly. So how that got started was I took Brian down there, and I don't know, gosh, it's been years ago. We rode, and that kind of a little bit inspired him to start putting stuff together, because I took him down and walled him around some of those mud roads, and there's some more challenge loops that I can put in, and they're all legal public roads, and hopefully they're not we never get to have the problem with them that they have, like with Molly Road, that we've been dealing with the past couple of days. So
yeah, we're going to talk about that here later in the show too.
Yeah, you really hope it doesn't come to that.
I think that will be. I think it's going to happen with places in the future, but it just depends on who buys the property, because money talks.
Yeah, James and I have talked in the past. It's inevitable. You're gonna, especially in our lifetimes, being younger, we're going to see a lot of the roads that we most enjoyed getting, sectioned off and abandoned by the state, bought out by somebody, and especially living the age of housing developments and all that stuff. Just in the area we live in, Fairmont, there's places I used to go jeeping all the time that has a housing development on it now.
Yeah.
So it's progress comes at a cost.
Yep.
Hopefully Central West Virginia will take a little bit longer, because there's really nothing there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you still have people come in, and because the property's cheap, and come in and buy a piece of property, and if it's 20 acres and they own the world, that's always been a thing.
We talked in a previous episode about land rights and land use. There's a lot of these companies that do like carbon credits and stuff that'll buy up old strip mine property that a lot of people rode on for years, and plant tree farms and stuff like that, so you can claim carbon credits and stuff on it. So I figure as things go on, people pretend to care more about the environment, that we'll see more of that.
Well, we lost a road in Ritchie County, which I don't know if you guys ever talked to Jerry Bain or not, but he
Richie Mines.
So the Ritchie Mines, that road through there, County Road 30, is still open, but there was one that was the left fork of McFarland Creek or whatever it was, and that's exactly what happened. The company come in and bought some property, and then since the road bed ran up the creek, they remediated the road, and it was in and out of the creek, and got carbon credits for that, which they can sell to. It's not just for powerhouses, because that's kind of becoming a thing in the past, but I think it's even, and it has a wetland or something, and you need to buy that wetland some way or another. I think it even gets those credits that way, but anyhow, yeah, that was one we lost for sure.
Yeah.
Just through there last week too. So we're around it. People, I think, have been in there, but it's now trespassing if you're in there. So that's probably not a good idea.
Yeah, it's not. But, I'm also starting to get of the mindset that if nobody else wants to play by the rules that we've tried to be nice and set and, do the responsible good thing, when it becomes illegal to recreate responsibly, maybe it's time to start doing things illegally.
Especially in a state that presents itself as one of the last bastions of off-road recreation. I've thought the same. You try to do it right, and they change the definition of what right is overnight.
What was that Marvin Heemeyer quote? You can a responsible man can only be pushed so far before irresponsible things are needed.
Reasonable men must
that's
do
it.
unreasonable
Reasonable men. That's it.
things.
Yeah, reasonable men must do unreasonable things.
But don't get caught on Little Indian Creek.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't
do that.
Don't be that guy.
Jeff, like you were saying, I really do appreciate your route because, I know obviously a lot of stuff up here, up northern West Virginia. There's a bunch of stuff, the Tour de Coalfields, as you get down towards the Summersville and kind of the southern central part of the state. Obviously, stuff on the eastern side in Canaan Valley, that's been explored and beat to death. But you're going through an area that's kind of always been a dark zone as far as routes and things that I know. So it's really awesome to, like you said, you can connect your route to so many other routes in the state where you could take a whole month and just ride around the state of West Virginia and not hit the same thing twice now.
Yeah, and the reason I started, I looked at starting in Parkersburg, which is kind of I didn't want to start in town, so that puts you on the east side of I-77. But I looked at Marietta. Well, at the foot of the Williamstown Bridge, that Brad McFadden's goat route goes through there. So you actually technically can start on the goat route and go my route or vice versa, and so start across the state. That was kind of a thing. And my friend Jim Miller, his Morton 1863 Morgan's Raid route, it goes right near I've got two different section ones. I've got a section 1A that starts in Marietta and section 1B starts in Ravenswood. So Jim's route is also just about 3 miles off of that, of the section 1B. So
yeah, that's really cool being able to connect all that stuff together like that.
That was just I know they're friends of mine, or Jim especially. Brad, I know him, but I just recently met him. But Jim, he used to beat me every Harris Crown every weekend 40 years ago, or almost 38 years ago, and ever since. So yeah.
What would you say is the hardest challenge section of your route?
Hardest challenge section. Well, I'm still working on those, and they're actually, when I went through, that's really, really dry. So all the watered out buggy holes are probably a lot drier. But I'd probably be the section, probably the first one in the section one. The one I said that knobby tires, you've been warned, because that's just the local. Start a poker run right down in there, and so it's the actual trail varies from the road by 100 yards either way, different places. And so as you get down there, dirt bike, you pick your way through. You get an adventure bike with that's not good. It's red clay and it's bad. Be a bad day on a heavy bike.
Bad day on an Africa Twin like mine. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying you couldn't do it, but you probably wish you hadn't. I mean, it just takes a lot of fun out of it. I mean, right now it's so dry in the Ohio Valley that
Yep.
you could probably skip around a lot of those holes because it's unusually dry. But then those same holes might be 2 foot deep water.
That really affected us on the 304 detour this year.
Yeah.
We had the same issue. Guys saying that it was a little bit more easy than they thought it was going to be, when in reality, had it rained, regularly leading up to it, they would have been singing a different tune.
Yeah.
Yeah, mud on rocks is never a good thing.
Exactly. There's sections that I've lived in this area since 2018 and have never seen the bottom of some of these holes, but it got so dry this summer that some of these deep holes, especially on Fetterman Hollow, you finally see what the bottom was like.
Yeah, I came across County Route 1908, aka Fort Hill, which is where we're going to be doing the West Virginia Tread Lightly Day coming up here later this month.
Nice.
Took the Jeep across there just to kind of get an overall look at how much trash was up there and what we were going to need. And yeah, same deal. There's buggy holes up there that there's no way in hell I would want to try to take my Jeep through. Well, I went right through them there the other day because there's no mud in them.
Yep.
It's insane how dry it's been this year.
And that could change in a week,
Yep, you never know. Well, I think that's going to lead us into our segment here. So everybody grab your beers and lend us your ears. It's time for the six pack. All right, Gabby, this is a quick rapid fire little question segment here to let everybody get to know you a little bit better. Let's start out with what's your favorite trail tunes to listen to while you're out there riding?
Trail tunes. Man, that's been a long time since I had anything in my head. Wow. Years ago, I remember when I was racing, there was Whitesnake was out. That tells you how long that's been.
Yeah.
1987, or it was, Still the Night or something. I used to get that in my head when I was racing.
So
that was been a long time.
Trevor?
So what would be your dream bike?
Well, I've got 6 bikes right now, so probably, I don't know.
Surely one of them has to be the...
Well, I don't know. I like my new gas I just bought, a EC300, and it's a 2024. That's for fuel-injected bike stuff. I rode it there down in Charleston yesterday or whatever, the tornado stuff, and I don't know. I like it real well, but I don't know. I guess I'd have a dream bike if I wanted. I'd just go get it. So
that's a good position to be in.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. All right, next up, what's your favorite terrain to ride in?
Oh, the definitely Appalachia, single track, rolling hills. Southern Ohio has some really nice single track that's, you don't have a lot of rocks. None. When it gets wet, it gets muddy. So,
yeah.
But yeah, the Ohio Valley, I guess, single track.
Cool. Next up,
what's your go-to trail snack?
Pepperoni rolls.
Yeah.
Same here.
That's a staple in anybody's snack kit.
Yep.
If you could only do 2 mods to a bike, what would they be?
Decent tires. I always run soft terrain tires. Although I've with this hard, dry summer, some of those gummy tires are just silly. The traction you get out of those things. So, and I don't know, decent seat on a lot of bikes if I'm going to put any miles on it. Seat Concepts. I've got a stock in that company.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Seat Concepts. I've installed several on personal bikes and several for other people over the years.
Gabby, you mentioned something that I want to get firsthand experience from you on as well. The new Tornado single tracks opened up right outside of St. Albans, part of the Hatfield-McCoy Trail, which is a new single track system open to motorcycles and mountain bikes. So what was your takeaway from going down there and be able to run some of that?
There's a little bit of stuff for anybody. I mean, the depending on the number. I didn't get into the 90s, the extreme stuff, and even some of the 60s kind of had me stymied because they'd had some trees blow down, and I was out there by myself, so I didn't really want to get too crazy with it. But it's definitely challenging. I mean, if you rode any of the Hatfield single tracks in other areas, we get in those hollows and the rocks. Or if you ever rode down to Campbell's Creek and some of the creek bombs they got down there, well, it's real similar. I don't really know who laid them out, but they smell like Rich Watch tracks, but they're not. They're not his trails, but they're a lot of that stuff, But they had some large trees blow down this weekend, and it changed the trails quite a bit. So,
Gotcha.
And there's a video floating around where this guy says something like rock formation, and that's not part of the trail. And I did the same thing. Shot the turn and went up, and there's all of a sudden it looks like he's right alongside this rock, and then he ends up like throwing his bike down over the hill, which I didn't feel like doing that on a bike that had 20 miles on it. So so I drug it backwards and got down out of there, and then it was Trail 67. So yeah, that's a little bit of whatever you want. I don't know. I could drag up, I think total miles is like 300 or 35 miles. I think there's 600 acres there. So it's not a large place, but if you have nothing else, that's some place to go,
Yeah. Well, that's definitely the closest one for us now to get down that way. I definitely want to get down there and hit it up. So I know that you recently retired. So what does your schedule look like these days? Do you have a set number of dual sport and ADV events or races and stuff you like to hit every year?
No, the organized events are hit and miss. I don't try because it seems like they're all on the same weekends, and I don't know how it works out that way. I am signed up for Blackwater for next week, so I'm going to that first. And because big rallies and stuff like Wayland Wayne weekend is this weekend, and I don't really. It sounds like something I'm not really interested in, but maybe you never know. I might change my mind sometime. But,
Yeah, I'll be down at Chris's rally there next weekend as well.
Yeah, well, see, there's some guys, couple guys, friends of mine from Ohio that I rode with forever, planning on going, and of course, Brian will be there, and Danny and Marcus, and I guess all the usual suspects.
Yeah, the normal crew, right?
Yeah.
Good deal. So I don't think of what else, but you've been around the block, obviously. What's your takeaway on where the motorcycle industry is these days? I know you've seen a lot of advances, and bike brands come and go. So what's your overall outlook on the future of the sport?
That's a deep subject. I don't, this what we're involved in, it seems to be growing, or at least holding its own, as far as the adventure tourism, venture riding, that he can opine on the cruiser culture or whatever is forever. You never, like I always say, I told friends of mine, said, you go to the gas station and a whole crew of V-twin riders pull in there, and they're all make me look young. I mean, and they're all in their 60s, 70s, whatever. And so what are they going to do in 10 years? I wish them the best as a company, but I don't know what to make of all that. I don't know enough of the younger folks to whether there's enough interest in motorsports to be sustainable from here on out, or not. I don't know. We'll have to see. Just do our own thing and do what we can do, and have fun.
That's what it's all about.
Just speaking from personal experience, I know. So I'm 29. There's a couple riders in our core group that are younger than I am. But you go to some of these local air scrambles, and there's still guys they're pretty young, carrying the torch, still doing it. There's still a lot of interest in, especially the racing side of things with young guys. But the whole dual sport and adventure bike side of things, it seems that it gravitates to people that are a little bit longer in the years.
The I know at the racing, I always said that kids will race until they got to pay for it themselves, which is around, you know, as long as mom and dad's paying for it or have the, because there is that transition between, okay, you finally get out, you got to do, get your own money. It takes you a while to where you actually can make some money. Plus, you have a family along the way. So there's that gap. There's usually not a lot of 25-year-old racers, There's 30-year-olds and there's 18-year-olds and less, and that's it. But, so.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. I think you get to that certain age where you have to start paying for everything yourself. And, what does that entail? Well, that usually means you're out working overtime to be able to afford to buy your parts or buy your entry fee. And then you start to realize really quickly that, this is dumb. I'm killing myself at work. I'm killing myself out here on this track to be able to ride for an hour. And, I hope that if you're like that, you end up finding like I did, like, hey, I don't need to do this. I can go ride off road. I can dual sport. I can do whatever I want. And there's no money involved. There's no time limits. There's no set schedules. Like I can just go do what I want. And it's way more fun.
Exactly.
And
just get out and have fun.
Yeah. Doing that than there is chasing a $2 plaque that has third place on it.
And, I know you've always had to have
I've been happy with third.
You're first, you're last.
Exactly. I know you've always had to have a pretty current bike to be competitive, but we're in an age now where a competitive bike is $12,000.
Yeah,
it's a really tough pill to swallow if you're in your early 20s and wanting to continue racing.
Yep. Everything's expensive, man. Like, yeah. I'm starting to get to that point where I sound like the old guy where I remember walking around the dealerships and you'd see a brand new KX250 YZ250 two-stroke and it was, $5,500 out the door. Well, that same bike's almost $10,000 now. Like it's absolutely insane. So.
But you can keep a bike a lot longer. People get that feeling where next model year is always better, but it's not really, especially if you're racing off-road. It's not. I don't think it's even makes a difference in motocross like they've always sold it that way. And the bikes used to be, if you rode them hard for a year, they were junk after a year. But
yeah,
unless you're riding maybe a 250F or something, most of the bikes they're very durable anymore, and especially the chassis and stuff. And if you're riding a two-stroke, you can ride that thing and give it to your kids, and they can ride it forever.
Yeah. Rebuilds are a lot cheaper too.
Yeah, found that to be true. Really, in what we do too now with the dual sport and ADV stuff is, it's nice going to the dealership and buying a brand new one off the showroom floor and setting it up the way you want it. But 9 times out of 10, there's one out there that has low mileage, it's already ready to go, and it's going to last you forever. And the guy bought it and thought he wanted to do this kind of riding and decided that wasn't for him. So there's deals out there.
The longer I'm in this hobby, the more I realize I just like riding.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what it's on. I have just as much fun on a Trail 90 as I do my KTM 350.
Yep.
It's all the same. It's all its own, flavor of fun, so to speak.
I don't care what anybody rides, just ride the thing.
Yeah.
Whether it be street bikes or dirt bikes or dual sport bikes, just ride it. Doesn't do any good sitting in the garage.
All right. Well, Gabby, I think that's going to kind of wrap it up for us. Anything you want to leave everybody out there with tonight?
That was probably it right there. That was as close as anything.
Just get
Just
out
ride.
there. Like it.
Yeah, that's a good closer.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you so much for coming on tonight. We appreciate it. And, hey, I'll see you next weekend, bub.
Definitely. See you next weekend.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
And bye.
Awesome. Love having that legend on. If
Those
who know.
Yeah, anybody that takes the time to lay a route out, you understand how much goes into it. And it's a lot more than just hopping on Google Earth and putting some lines together.
I mean, you can do that, but you're not going to be very successful, I don't think.
Yeah, you can do that, and you'll be universally hated.
Yeah.
Like some of the guys on Adventure Rider.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get into some industry news, shall we? right, here we go. First up, more woes for KTM. Pierre Mobility Group continues to scramble in an effort to cut costs due to poor sales and rising debts. An additional 200 jobs will be cut, and a 25% planned decrease in production across all models will hope to have them on track back by 2025. Now, they've already laid off 375 people, so it's going to be 575 total here. What do you think about this?
I got a lot of thoughts.
Let's hear it.
So my biggest gripe is that they've snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, right? They had a model that worked and they modified it until it didn't. They fixed it until it was broke. KTM's at the point now that they're starting to pull back from their racing side of things, which is absolutely crazy because they're as well known for adrenaline like adventure sports as Red Bull.
Yeah.
I don't know that their strategy of continuously cutting jobs in Austria and replacing that with production in whatever other countries they're utilizing is going to be the winning formula. And at a certain point, it has started to bother me. They are presenting themselves as Austrian engineering, Austrian manufacturing, and then a lot of their bikes, especially venture bikes, are just not. I mean, they're not made in Austria.
Yeah.
It's starting to get a little facetious.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good word to put. Yeah, it's been an interesting couple of years for them, obviously with taking over Gas, launching that as kind of their budget brand and, purchasing the majority stake in MV Augusta and trying to get them back and rolling. Yeah, it kind of seems like they've spread themselves too thin and now they're going to pay for it.
I agree.
So
You
they're
look
going to
at
have to consolidate and try to get back in the game.
if you look at the decisions they've made, you can definitely tell that the people manning the helm are most concerned about short-term profits. Um, these C-suite guys can completely tank a company and move on to the next one and do it again and again and again, and each time get a pay raise. We're in an age where there is no real enthusiast-driven side to a motorsports company. It's purely profit,
Yeah.
and it should come as no surprise that Pierre Mobility Group falls in the same category.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's a simple case of you got a group of investors that, saw the glowing orange ball of opportunity and jumped feet first in, and they're just like any other investment group. They're looking at their investment not paying off, so they have to do what they need to
Yep.
do to start cutting it back and making that profit because, like you said, it's not really enthusiast driven anymore. So it'll be an interesting couple of years for KTM.
It's
I think.
funny. Harley has the issue that a lot of people my age, so I'm not quite 30 yet, largely aren't too interested in the whole Harley image or whatever you want to call it, gravitating more towards like sport bikes or Triumph or something like that. And then you have KTM, which, a lot of young guys, dirt bikes especially appeals to them. They can't afford them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that simple. It's extremely expensive in an age where everything else has become so unaffordable. Your basic groceries, fuel, et cetera, et cetera. It used to be that you could stomach, and you could stomach a $8,000 bike, some years ago, or $10,000 bike some years ago, because you could still afford to eat. Food was cheap, gas was cheap. You could save up and buy it. We're kind of past that. We're in an age now when people my age and younger are having difficulty buying a house. So can you really fault them for even,
No, that's true.
not being able to shell out 12 grand plus for a new
Yeah.
KTM motorcycle?
You see the poor guy that bought the KTM 790 with his butter camshafts, and he's sitting there. Well, I need to rebuild this bike or eat. I have to decide what to do this month.
It really doesn't inspire confidence to see a company that won't step up and at least do like a good faith effort to make things right, especially the price those things go for. So we'll see how things progress. Hopefully Husqvarna doesn't change hands for the 5th time in 30 years.
Yeah. Let's see. I can't imagine that Succession parts catalog that they have to keep up if they get change hands again. See what happens. Road closure suspends the Tour de Coalfields route. So this one hits home and is very, very unfortunate. Jed Smith says, I'm very sad to report that a section of Molly Road, County Road 8/1 in Greenbrier County has been abandoned by the West Virginia Department of Highways. This section is a vital connector along the Tour de Coalfields route. It seems the Department of Highways has failed to uphold its agreements to publicly post its abandonments at this time. And an alternative route is hopefully going to be put together soon to re-release the Tour de Coalfields. It's been pulled from, I pulled it off of FDSR, so people weren't getting in there. I know Laney's taking it off of his site, Adventure Horizons, and Brian and the guys at IADV as well. So this is really unfortunate. We obviously are part of the Country Roads Coalition to try to fight this type of stuff. And this seems like another one of those backdoor deals where a road was blocked and abandoned, and what was agreed upon was not done. So, the old laws were basically if you wanted a road abandoned, you went through the proper channels, talked to the Department of Highways, they came out, did their inspection, you told why they wanted it abandoned, yada, yada, yada. Well, whenever it was being decided on if it was going to be abandoned or not, they would post up for public comments. And the only outsource that they had to do that legally was to post it in a newspaper. And it could be buried in, page 16 with the obituaries and a tiny little paragraph that they were looking for public comments for this road abandonment. Well, part of this new, partnership with the CRC, it was supposed to have been publicly announced on their website, the Department of Highways led website for comments for road abandonment, and it didn't really work out that way on this time. So it's kind of a shady back road or backroom deal. What it seems like for the most part to shut down probably one of the most fun roads on the Tour de Coalfields route, and we're really really bummed out about that.
It's really unfortunate. Some areas of the state, there are very few roads that connect one point of interest to the other. Sometimes there's only one. In some areas, like we've talked about in the show several times in the past, unfortunately, that's the reality of the time that we're in. We made it just in time to see all the things we used to enjoy being abandoned, shut down, paved, etc. So, what benefit was it to try to do things right?
Yeah,
to some extent.
yeah,
And really, there's a lot of work that goes into some of these routes, which I understand somebody from the DOH has zero appreciation of, because at the end of the day, most people are just concerned about getting their work done and going home. But these routes are a lot of work, and to see one swipe of the pen render them temporarily unavailable is really disheartening.
Yeah, especially for the state of West Virginia trying to pride itself on being a tourism state now that the coal industry is dying, and we want to try to spearhead motorized recreation as a way to bring money and tourism dollars into the state of West Virginia. And I can't tell you how many people I've heard come in a Jeep, a side by side, a motorcycle, dual sport, what have you, to do the TDC. And for this road to be shut down is really unfortunate. And it just sucks because it was a 800-foot section of the road. There's no houses around it or anything. It's just it's just bad all around. So we'll see what happens in the future. Hopefully, Laney and those guys can figure out an alternative means and an alternative way to connect the road back together and get the TDC back up and going again. But that's an unfortunate loss, and just goes to show you that sometimes, even if you fight the good fight and do everything you're supposed to do, money has a lot more say than anything else in the back rooms in the Capitol. So we'll see what happens with that situation. Next up, the CF Moto Ibex 800T and 800S have been recalled. Hit the wrong buttons here. According to the National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration, the 850 motorcycles may have a defect in the throttle wire, bending and eventually breaking. CF Moto says that the 2023 model years may have an overly tight rubber clasp that secure that wire while steering. Owners will be notified, and the repairs will be done free of charge. Um, yeah, I think it's also something that was sort of an issue on the 890s and 790s that it was kind of copied from. So no real surprise there. Just glad to see that CF Moto is going to step up and make it right.
Well, I'm glad somebody's going to step up and make it right. It's like like we talked about KTM and these you know, candle wax camshafts and everything just does not inspire any confidence.
And last but certainly not least, way down yonder on the Chattahoochee BDRX, you see Alan Jackson down there riding a dual sport in North Georgia, maybe?
That sounds exciting.
The Backcountry Discovery Route is set to release a 350-mile loop through the mountains of North Georgia. The route passes over the Appalachian Trail and through the Chattahoochee National Forest and all over the scenic country roads in Squidbilly Country in northern Georgia. Wow! The full-length premiere film releases in September, and the route will be released shortly after that. So it's kind of neat to see the BER start to spread out more, especially in the eastern side.
Yep.
You know, we have all kinds of good stuff out west for them that they've put together, but you know, obviously, the only thing they have out in this area is the MA BDR, the
Yep.
Northeast BDR. They released the PA Wilds BDRX there a while ago. So this is kind of getting down in the southeastern part of the United States. I look for them to have more BDRs in that area as well. So
Yep.
any more riding routes that we get put together are obviously good for the sport.
Yeah, I always thought a lot of areas of the East were neglected when it came to BDR routes and similar routes. Everybody talks about going out west to have some big adventure, but man, there's a lot of really good terrain in this area.
It really is. All right, well, that's going to leave us with our last and certainly not least segment, Had to Lay Her Down.
Did you run into some clippings? Did Barb take the kids? Well, Hoss, maybe you had to lay her down.
This week's Had to Lay Her Down is brought to us by Channel 11 News in Hotlanta. This will be a good one here. Let's watch this. Pay attention to the rider on this bike because he might have a future career as a Houdini magician. Let's
He's
see.
got a level of commitment that I can only dream to achieve.
Whoa, where'd he go?
Gone.
Yeah, that guy fell off and went over the overpass through the chain link fence. You know, we're doing a little bit of research. The guy survived this. And 6 months after this crash, unfortunately, was trying to see how fast he could go on I-95 and lost his life. So, you know, maybe hate to hear that, but maybe should have got a little bit more this around.
I don't know if that was just an example of target fixation.
Kind of looked like it.
Yeah.
Kind of looked like it. But that's impressive to go through that, clear through that chain link fence like that. Anything else, Trevor, before we bounce out of here this evening?
No, I don't have anything else to add.
All right. Well, schedule might get a little sporadic here the next couple of weeks. Mr. Mann is getting married, like we said here, and be enjoying his honeymoon there when we have the show that week. We have hopefully some good news coming here in the next couple of days, and we may have an episode a little bit sooner than normal. But if we do, and this all works out, it'll be probably the coolest one we've done so far. So
Yeah.
fingers crossed that all that works out, but we will keep you posted on the Facebook page. And without further ado, that's going to do it for us tonight. We want to thank you all for tuning in. We want to thank Jeff for coming on and talking with us this evening. And we'll catch you guys shortly on Tallboys and Trackmasters.
Thanks, guys.